I love diving deep into relationships with all of you. So let's talk about Love is Blind, episode 5. Hi, I'm Dr. Pam, therapist and passionate couples counselor. And today we're going to be talking about how unhealed trauma shows up in relationships. And also, when it comes to trust, when it comes into question, how do you know if someone's response is authentic and trustworthy? And we're going to talk about so much more. And also, I just want to mention that Love is Blind is a heavily edited show, as you all know, and my comments are based solely on what we see in front of us, so I can provide you with relationship insights. And I also think it's important to say that all of us carry challenges based on whatever we've been through in our life, and the people on this show offer valuable lessons, so I'm grateful to learn from them. Okay, let's start with Dave and Lauren. And just a quick reminder when Lauren confronted Dave about Molly.
Their girlfriend Molly came into the lounge and very proudly talked about how you told her that she was your number one connection here.
And Dave responds with this.
I've never told Molly that she's my number one choice. I would not have told her that knowing how I feel about you.
So you and I know a very different version of the events. He told Lauren that he never told Molly she was his number one. But let's watch.
Right? Honestly, you were my number one after the first day.
If you were falling,
especially after right now, today. I'm holy shit. This could be it.
So this raises an important question. How can we recognize an authentic response when dating someone, especially when what they're telling us contradicts other information that we have? Well, let me show you some clips first, and then I'll share with you the answer.
I'm 30.
Okay. So you're no longer attractive.
Oh my God.
This was Lauren's first encounter with Dave. She immediately questioned whether she should walk out. While leaving wasn't a realistic option given the nature of the show, what mattered was how Dave made her feel, and he continued to give her more reasons for her to pay attention. He openly talked about another woman with her.
She is just so fun and funny.
This likely made her feel uncomfortable, at the very least, disrespected, and perhaps undervalued.
This is what I didn't want to happen, is get caught up in the girl drama.
Then instead of taking responsibility for his own actions when Lauren confronts him about Molly, he shifted blame onto Lauren and Molly, deflecting ownership of a situation that he created. So when you question someone's authenticity and trustworthiness, look at what you already know about them. It's so easy to overlook red flags when you're emotionally invested in someone, especially in the early stages of dating. At this point, Lauren has already had enough information, though, to question Dave's integrity. The lesson here is this. When you're dating someone, trust what you already know about them and believe what they tell you about themselves. When someone shows you who they are or even tells you who they are, don't dismiss it. Trust the information that you already have. One thing that I do want to be very clear about, we all face challenges. It's a part of being human. What matters is recognizing and understanding them so we can grow. So this isn't about judgment, but about gaining insight into ourselves and our relationships.
I told you I could see myself proposing to you.
Yeah.
I have not said that to anyone else. And I actually really can. I think you are one of the best people I've met. Not just here, but in general. I can just hear in your voice you're extremely genuine and kind.
When we fear losing someone, it's so easy to get caught up in beautiful words. In those moments, we may ignore what we already know about a person, choosing to believe in their words rather than what we know about them. But here's the problem. If you accept what someone says at face value without considering the full picture of who they have shown themselves to be, you are setting yourself up for disappointment and hurt. A healthier response from Dave would have been to acknowledge Lauren's feelings and creating space for an open conversation. He might have said, Lauren, I can imagine that hearing me tell Molly that she was my number one must have been really difficult for you to hear. I understand why you want to talk about this, and I want to listen.
I've not always made the right choices in my past.
In what
I feel
ways?
like I've always made the wrong choice.
Really?
I just have always felt that way about myself, like about everything, not just like relationships, but like everything.
Let's not make the wrong decision this time around.
Okay.
We don't know if Lauren followed up with more questions, but here's what we can take away from this moment. Dave is revealing something significant about himself. He believes he has consistently made the wrong decisions in his life. For Lauren, I wonder if she's so focused on wanting to be chosen that she is overlooking the deeper implications of what he's saying. If someone tells you that they have a pattern of making poor decisions, it's important to ask questions like, what kinds of poor decisions have you made in your life? And what do you think led you to make those decisions? And how have your choices impacted others? And why do you believe you have made poor decisions? And have you done anything to change that pattern? Because if he continues making the same mistakes, that will inevitably affect you. These questions offer insight into his level of self-awareness and, more importantly, whether he takes action to grow from his mistakes.
The more you know about me and your other connection, I would tell you that I want to be with you. Like, I would tell you to, like, pick me in this.
This is why Lauren is overlooking so many red flags. The fear of rejection is powerful. And if you've ever had experiences where your connection felt uncertain or unstable, perhaps growing up, that fear can feel even stronger. It makes it really easy to focus on keeping the relationship, even if something inside of you is waving a little red flag. In fact, research shows that rejection activates the same area in our brain as physical pain, which is why it can feel so deeply painful. So naturally, our instinct is to avoid pain at all costs. But here's the shift one can make. You don't have to operate from a place of wanting to be chosen. Instead, recognize your own worth and empowerment. If you ever find yourself desperately hoping for someone to pick you, flip that script and say to yourself, I am worth more than just being chosen. And do I see myself in this relationship as someone whose worth will be valued and respected? This moves you from a passive role waiting for validation to an active one where you decide whether the relationship truly aligns with your needs and self-worth. So let's see what's going on with Dave and Molly.
I've been crying for the last hour.
You have?
I'm just like freaked out because like I know our conversation earlier.
Yeah.
And I'm like freaked out by myself because I'm like, how can I be such a different like person from like hours ago?
That is an excellent question for Dave to reflect on, and I'll say more about it in a moment. But honestly, I wish he had the awareness to recognize that he is not in the right space to marry either Molly or Lauren. The fact that he's even asking that question suggests he may not have had the clarity or stability to make such a serious lifelong commitment. I mean, just hours ago he was discussing engagement rings with Molly, and now he's turning toward Lauren. We don't know if he is being intentionally dishonest, and I actually don't believe that he is, and I'll say more about why in a minute. But what does seem clear is that he is conflicted, and when you're unsure within yourself, it's nearly impossible to offer certainty to someone else.
Yeah.
I don't even know what I'm doing.
You were thinking about sending shit.
Well, I didn't say I was gonna end it, but I was cool with that until I got into my date with Lauren, and that's when everything in my head started spinning.
So he was cool with ending it with Lauren until he had another date with her. By the way, and I am sure that you know this, but if you are ever that undecided, that's your answer. You're simply not ready, but let's keep going.
Like I come from our dates, I feel so good, and then I go to another one and I just feel all this pressure, and like I've been trying really hard to like be the best version of myself through it, and it's just gotten like harder.
You might be wondering, how can someone lack this much self-awareness? Is Dave intentionally lying? Does he genuinely not remember what he has said to different people, Molly and Lauren? What's really going on here? Dave asked himself, how can I be a different person from just hours ago? I believe that Dave is struggling with early childhood trauma from when he was very, very young. I say this because he seems deeply confused. This situation has pushed him into challenges he can't easily escape from, the way that he might have in the past. He's being forced to face himself on a deeper level, but it seems like he hasn't explored that part of himself before, leaving him now almost in a state of crisis. Dave keeps saying that he wants to be a better person, but what he really needs to understand is his trauma. So I am assuming. It seems like when he talks about wanting to be a better person, he's focused on changing his actions. But real growth comes from taking a deep look at your inner world. And if there's trauma there, facing it can feel very frightening. I didn't show you this, but he said that he is so effed up. His emotional breakdowns, his confusion, and his desire to improve overall seems so disconnected, like puzzle pieces that don't quite fit. That is often the impact of unresolved trauma. It scrambles our sense of self, making it difficult to see our own patterns clearly. Trauma has a way of making everything feel unclear, even to the person experiencing it. And until Dave gains deeper self-awareness and healing, his confusion will continue to affect both himself and the people that he interacts with. One of the hardest things about early trauma is that many people don't even realize they've experienced it. It often feels like just normal life because it's all they've ever known. And let me say this about trauma. The most unfair thing about trauma is that it happens to you. And yet you are the one who is left to find a way to heal from it. But despite the unfairness, your healing is also a gift, one that you give to yourself, as hard as that might be.
I try really hard in my normal life not to make like emotional decisions.
Well, I'm sorry you're going through it. Obviously, I know what I want. You know how I feel, but I'm not here to like force anything.
So Dave says that he doesn't make emotional decisions. I interpret that as him being largely disconnected from his emotions, something that often happens when someone has experienced trauma. Cutting off from emotions can be a coping mechanism, a way to stay feeling safe and protected. But now his emotions seem to be unraveling. And here's the challenge. When you've spent much of your life cut off from your emotions, you haven't learned how to self-regulate them or to self-soothe. And it's not as simple as learning a new skill. It requires deeper work, processing the trauma, understanding how it has shaped you, and then learning how to manage your emotional responses in a healthy way. And for Molly, she seems to interpret Dave's confusion as him being conflicted about what he wants. She's trying to help by not putting pressure on him, giving him space, but it's worth questioning, why does Molly step into that role? Why is she willing to stay in a situation where Dave is clearly torn between two women? How does she feel about that? And why does she accept being in that position? We can't know for sure, but perhaps it's a dynamic that feels familiar to her. Regardless, it is important to recognize that waiting to be chosen or tolerating emotional uncertainty is not the foundation for a healthy, secure relationship. A solid relationship starts when both people know their worth and choose each other from a place of clarity, not conflict.
Everything's so fun, and that's freaking me out. I'm really struggling with this.
Do you need to think about it?
That's what I'm trying to say. I'm not trying to make a super emotional decision, but like, I don't know. I literally never cry either.
Well, there it is. Dave admits that he never cries, which strongly suggests that he's been disconnected from his emotions for a very long time. A lot of people early on learn to shut off their emotions to stay safe. It might work for a while, but the downside is this: it becomes hard to connect, not just with others, but with yourself too. So when emotions eventually show up, it feels so overwhelming because you've never been taught how to manage them.
I do have, like, me and Lauren, I feel like I do have to, like, see that through.
Yeah. Do you feel like you guys have that emotional connection more then?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah? So then I feel like you've made your decision, right?
Molly is understandably confused. Dave isn't clearly telling her that he wants to end things with her. When he says he wants to see things through with Lauren, it could mean that he's not ready to let go of Lauren, despite talking with Molly just hours earlier about engagement rings. And on top of that, he tells Molly that he appreciates that she's not pressuring him, which keeps her in a holding pattern. Do you see how unclear he is with Molly? This is exactly what I meant when I said that trauma creates confusion, not just for the person experiencing it, but for everyone around them.
I hate that it's like I made a decision. Like,
I mean, you can say that.
yeah, I mean,
You're allowed to say that.
Okay. Why are you so cool about it? I don't get that.
When Dave asks why Molly is so cool about the situation, it shows his inner conflict. He seems surprised, maybe even uneasy, because her calmness contrasts with the confusion he feels inside. It's a reminder that when we're unsure of ourselves and our emotions, we might look to others to make sense of what we're feeling. Molly responds with saying that she's not actually cool with it deep down, and that gives us insight into her emotional restraint. On the surface, she seems composed, trying to be supportive, but underneath she's clearly conflicted and likely hurting. It seems like she's prioritizing Dave's feelings over her own, possibly out of fear of losing him or not wanting to be seen as demanding by downplaying her true emotions. She's putting herself in a position where her own needs aren't fully acknowledged.
Can you tell me, like, what you want right now? Tell me, in your ideal world, what happens right now?
What do you mean?
You can really see the confusion unfolding in the moment. Molly is trying to get clarity by asking Dave what he wants, but instead of giving a direct answer, he responds with, "What do you mean?" This shows that Dave is unaware of how he's communicating. He doesn't seem to realize that he's vague and unclear in his responses, and that's adding to Molly's uncertainty.
I feel like you're trying to say that you're choosing her, but without saying that, and make me make the decision.
No, I'm not.
Are you trying to end it with me? I think you should own your decision and make it.
No, I know, and I thought I just did.
Dave's inner world, he genuinely believed he was being clear when he said, "I thought I just did." But from the outside, he wasn't clear. Even accounting for what might have been edited out, his communication comes across as vague and uncertain. And honestly, it's sad to watch for both of them. For Molly, just hours earlier, she thought that she was about to get engaged, and now she's left in confusion and hurt and unsure probably of what just happened. And for Dave, if he has experienced trauma and has spent much of his life disconnected from his emotions, this moment is especially difficult for him. Emotional unraveling is incredibly challenging when you've learned to cope by shutting down or avoiding your feelings. Without a strong connection to his own emotions, it's likely overwhelming for him to process everything that's happening. But trauma can wire us for survival, not connection. Without learning how to ride out intense emotions, relationships can easily become battlegrounds or withdrawn silences. Dave has a lot of growth work ahead, and this moment on the show shows just how hard it can be to face those emotions all at once without the tools to manage them. That said, understanding the roots of someone's behavior does not mean you have to accept being on the receiving end of it. Kindness and compassion toward Dave's struggle can coexist with recognizing that his lack of integrity and clarity in relationships is harmful, and no one is obligated to tolerate that. Healthy relationships require accountability, not just empathy. Okay, I want to show you a bit just how he internalized his conversation with Molly as he talks with Lauren.
I have such strong feelings for Lauren. I need to see that through. She goes, so are you like trying to get me to end it with you? I feel like she was like trying to flip it on me.
Yeah.
I thought that was relatively clear.
So Dave's defenses are back up now. And when that happens, he shifts into blame. In his conversation with Lauren, he recounts what happened with Molly. But instead of recognizing his part in the confusion, he tells Lauren that he was being clear and that Molly was flipping it back on him. And he doesn't show any self-awareness around the situation that he created or how his mixed signals left both Molly and Lauren unsure of where they stood. And he shows no empathy for the fact that he just hurt Molly through all of this. And here's the key insight. When someone is disconnected from their emotions and they lack self-awareness, defensiveness and blame become their protection. But that comes at a cost not only to the people they're in relationships with, but to their own ability to grow and form healthy, grounded connections. Accountability isn't just about taking responsibility. It's how you move out of confusion and into clarity for both yourself and those around you. So, one more breakup. Let's take a look at Mason and Madison.
I don't know if you heard the news. I just think that maybe this is not like our story. I was able to get there faster with someone else.
It's hard to tell if Madison is chuckling as she breaks up with Mason because she's feeling uncomfortable. Sometimes people laugh or smile when they're uncomfortable, or if there's a part of her taking some satisfaction in that moment. If it's the latter, if she is taking satisfaction, she may have been feeling hurt herself. And sometimes when people are hurt, they try to reclaim a sense of control by appearing unfazed or even slightly amused.
I feel like I added some unnecessary pressure when I told you that I was committing to you. When I said it, I don't know if it felt right.
I'm not sure if Mason's response is coming from a place of authenticity in his sharing or if it's more about hurt feelings and trying to save face. When he tells Madison that his comment about committing to her didn't feel quite right, it seems like a reaction to protect himself, especially considering how emotionally detached Madison appears while she's breaking up with him. Hearing her show so little emotion in that moment likely stung, and this could be his way of trying to minimize his own vulnerability. I'm not sure if he feels regret for feeling like he was putting pressure on her or regret for saying something that he didn't actually feel. It's important to remember that Mason mentioned earlier that he is always the one who gets broken up with, and this breakup likely is triggering him, bringing up past feelings of rejection and hurt. So while his reaction is understandable, especially if he's feeling blindsided by Madison's lack of emotion, but it is also likely hurtful for Madison to hear that what he said wasn't genuine.
I just think you were probably saying very similar things to both of us. I got into my other date and was like, this is exactly what I've been looking for and wanting to hear.
Madison doesn't seem to recognize how differently she showed up in her dates with Mason compared to Alex. So there's a bit of judgment in her comment. She's pointing out that Mason may have said the same things to both women without fully seeing that she too interacted and connected differently depending on who she was with.
Meg and I did talk. I think you kind of just, tried to keep two good things going at once, and I don't know, might have lost both of them.
It seems clear that Madison was hurt because in this moment she does appear to take some satisfaction, not only in ending things with Mason, but also in pointing out that he may have lost Meg too. While it is never okay to take pleasure in hurting someone, This moment shows how unspoken or unprocessed hurt can easily spill out in ways that cause more harm. Madison has shared that she has endured significant trauma, and while she appears to be working hard on herself, she still has some growth work ahead of her, as we all do. It's not uncommon for people who have been deeply hurt to develop ways of protecting themselves. Whether it's consciously or unconsciously, they can end up hurting others in return. This is where self-awareness becomes so important. We are each responsible for managing our own hurt feelings, recognizing them, understanding them, and communicating them directly, rather than acting from them in a way that hurts others. Without that awareness, it's easy to fall into patterns where pain leads to more pain instead of genuine resolution or growth. Okay, so let's wrap this up with Meg and Mason.
I had feelings for two people here, you being one of them, Madison being the other. I validated Madison, and I clearly said it to the wrong person.
It's hard to know exactly why Mason has shifted. On the surface, it seems obvious. He may be shifting because he doesn't want to lose Meg. But here's the deeper issue. There's a lot Mason needs to sort out. First, how does he really feel about the breakup with Madison? Why was he so confused during that relationship, as he admitted? And why does he believe he suddenly has clarity now? This isn't about judging him. These are important questions for Mason to reflect on. Genuine clarity comes from understanding your own patterns and feelings, not from rushing to the next relationship.
I felt really confused.
Did you feel confused, though, before or after you found out that she was with Alex?
And that is a fair question. She is seeking that clarity.
How would I know if I was your number one that you would pick if now I'm just here by default?
There is no one here that made me feel genuinely like myself the way that you have. I mean, I can't even explain how happy you've made me. You've always been my number one.
This is exactly why I believe Mason has some growth work to do. He tells Meg that she was always his number one, but the reality is he previously told Madison that he was committed to her. Mason could benefit from really taking a step back and exploring his own patterns and thoughts and feelings. If he were to take the time to connect more deeply with himself, he might start to notice not just how he feels, but also the words he uses with others. Right now, he does seem unaware that he's saying the same things to two different women. So with greater self-awareness, it could help him see the impact of his words and bring more authenticity to his relationships. And by growing more in self-awareness, that will also help him understand why he continues to find himself in situations where people break up with him. Without that inner work, it's easy to fall into repeating the same relational dynamics without ever really knowing why. And it's the not knowing why that often causes us so much pain in life. At the end of the day, all of us bring our life experiences into relationships, the good, the messy, and everything in between. The key isn't being perfect or having it all figured out, but about being curious enough to ask, how is my past showing up here now? And is it helping me build the kind of connection I really want? Okay, that is a wrap for episode 5. Make sure to come back for episode 6, where I'm going to be diving into what happens when trust is tested in a relationship, as we saw with Daniel and Taylor, plus a whole lot more. You won't want to miss it. And if you found today's tips helpful, please give this video a thumbs up and share it with someone who might benefit. And don't forget to subscribe for more insights on love, relationships, and personal growth. See you next time.